Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Today, we would like to discuss this video clip that has been going around. A very well known face. I'll ask my colleague, Ben, to introduce him.
Good day to everybody. So this is one of our prominent, prophets that we have in Zimbabwe. I'm sure a lot of Zimbabweans know him if they do not actually attend, his church or his congregation. Um, so basically, he's got a very huge following, and he's also got churches around Zimbabwe, and he's also got plenty mansions that is particularly one that is actually built very magnificent in Harare there. So that's basically you know what he is all about. He's just one of those prophets that came in the turn of the century. So
Yeah,
yeah.
let's listen to what he is preaching to us today.
That man of God is a fake, but you, my God, the way that you fight for him, everyone is saying, can't you see? How come these people cannot see that this man is fake? Fake members. Members are fake. How can you have people that are very easy to deceive? Very easy to deceive. You can lie on Wednesday. Public. And on Sunday, you find them there waiting for you. You can get away with any sin, no matter the evidence. No matter the evidence, they'll still come and they sit. And even yourself, men of God, you're wondering, these people. You see, there's a certain group of people that you can't even brag that you have members because you say, you're worried about your people. How come they're so foolish? What is being said by other people about me is true. But my own people close to me cannot discern this. Would you even be happy that you have members that are fools, that cannot see the truth? You don't have people. You must be celebrating people that stop coming to your ministry because those ones are smart. They've seen the light.
This is interesting. My take on it is not so much on religion. My take on it is politics. If somebody is foolish enough to believe somebody claiming to be a prophet who has lied to them, well, that is most unfortunate. My biggest concern, I'll be honest with you, Ben, is with politics. Why is it that Chamisa was able to con 2 million people to participate in last year's elections on the belief, on his claim that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes and Triple C was going to win big? And yet, Triple C did not win big. The so-called plugged loopholes were so blatant that SADC and the AU could not pretend those elections were free, fair, and credible. And yet, the same 2 million people who voted for him, and I have to say that there must be probably just as many, particularly in the diaspora, who were cheering and applauding Chamisa, have never asked him or confronted him regarding this lie. That, to me, is the mystery. Why is it that our people are so ignorant, naive, and gullible?
You know, it's quite unfortunate that these people are actually in the majority. A majority of Zimbabweans are like that. They are told a certain narrative and they run with it. You know, it's not only just. I mean, you can see even on people that are peddling, you know, false information. Look at the amount of, you know, followers people like Gambakwe have. When, you know, all he's doing is telling people lies, and they are agreeing with it, despite the evidence that whatever he said has never come to pass. You take, for example, the Zanu PF members. They are told that there is something called a Vision 2030. Upper, you know, upper middle income. How do you achieve that? They do not know. What are the prerequisites for it? They do not know. Then now we go to the triple C. Now, well, they're no longer called triple C, but they are Chamisa chete chete mkomana ngapinde. You know, they were told something that, you know, did not even make any sense to those that could see, that you will win rigged elections. The first time you tried, you lost, right? The second time you said, this time it will never happen. This time I've got it covered. I have got strategies in place, you know, strategic ambiguity. That's what his plan was. It failed. And despite all these things, you know, just like what Makaniwa is saying, people will follow. You know, it's quite unfortunate that I think we have, you know, this is what differentiates us from, you know, animals. Our ability to think. If you take that away from us, we are animals. You are taken wherever I wish, and you know you cannot say anything. You cannot complain. You know, it's just sad. I mean, it's really, really sad that these people are actually in the majority and they have an equal say, you know, in governing, in who is going to govern a country. And I find it, you know, it's sad, and it's also difficult for a country like, you know, Zimbabwe to actually make progress when you have such people, you know, in the majority.
The point still one has got to answer. And I think the nation, we really need to sit down and answer it. Why is it so many people are so gullible, so ignorant, that even when they are confronted with the evidence, they still refuse to accept the reality? It is absurd, really absurd, that we find ourselves in this situation. I have said on this platform, and I'll say it again, the number one purpose of why people of Zimbabwe have risked their livelihoods, their limbs, and 500 were murdered during the runoff of 2008 alone, to elect MDC Triple C leaders into positions of power was so that they would implement the democratic reforms, the democratic changes necessary to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. You define that and understand that. Then you can move on. In a country like the UK, the USA, or any of the other countries where there's democracy, the primary purpose of the opposition is to hold the government of the day to account. In Zimbabwe, it's not that. The primary purpose of the opposition was to make sure that we move away as quickly as possible from this culture of rigged elections. MDC were elected in 1999. The party itself was launched in 1999. And they came on the political stage, riding the wave of the popular demand for democratic change. And they named their party after that as well. Why is it that people have failed to see that these guys have failed to implement even one reform? In 24 years, including 5 in the GNU. They are so easily conned and brainwashed to the point where you don't know why you elected the opposition. And after 24 years, you still don't understand why you elected the opposition. The penalty for this ignorance and naivety is the failed state. Whether people want to admit it or not, Zimbabwe is a failed state, and the whole nation is paying dearly for it. What I find interesting, sorry, let me just make this remark. What I find ridiculous in our situation, Ben, I'll be honest with you, is that these mistakes are being made repeatedly. Why is it that these people are incapable of learning from the past? Why can't they open their eyes and learn from the past? That is what I find unbelievable.
So what is actually happening, and what is really, really sad, is that these type of people are now defending and furiously their leaders. Both political divides, they will defend their leaders without any fact or any evidence to support their defense. And if you go as far as you continue debating against them, they go into insults. They will insult you. So this is the level of people that we are dealing with. When we are talking about moving forward as Zimbabwe, it becomes extremely difficult to break through. They are so brainwashed and so conned. Their decisions, they have to come from the top. They have to come from the main man, be it Mnangagwa, be it Chamisa. Those two, if they do not say anything, nothing goes, nothing will move them. Even if they say something that is completely nonsense, they will follow without asking a question, and they will defend it just because they have said it. So it becomes very difficult when you look at where are we going as a country. What should we do to win this battle and fight for democracy? For me, that is very, very worrying every day, because I look at the type of leadership that we are getting. I mean, we had Mugabe. He was a little bit learned, but he still made mistakes. Here we have somebody that we don't know any history of, but he's showing that he is a complete buffoon. Now, after this buffoon goes, another serious one is coming. So our trend is just getting worse and worse and worse every day, which is very, very worrying.
Well, I'll put my closing remarks by playing this video clip, which I think should be one of the building blocks for Zimbabweans as we move forward. How are we going to get out of this political mess? We've had 44 years of elections. And as things stand right now, it is almost clear that Zanu PF is gearing to go into the 2028 elections with no reforms implemented. And Chamisa and company will participate in those flawed elections and come up with as usual same idiotic promises that they would win those elections hands down, because then they've now got strategies of winning rigged elections. And the millions of Zimbabweans will believe them. That is one of our biggest tragedies in Zimbabwe. These people are so blinkered, so blind, they'll believe whatever Chamisa will tell them. And so we are almost guaranteed to have the opposition participating in the flawed elections and the blinkered electorate participating in their millions to give the process legitimacy. This video clip is being addressed by Dr. Mumba, the guy who chaired the SADC election observer mission of the last year's elections. And what he's emphasizing there is the way forward for the people of Zimbabwe, i.e., implement the democratic reforms to ensure free, fair, and credible elections. Here we go.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, let me be clear that the changing of any dynamic or situation in any of our African countries is a preserve of the citizens of that country, in this case, the Zimbabwean people. An election observation team goes there to support the process by observing and being able to release a statement of our observations that, for instance, in Zimbabwe, we raised several issues of transparency and also the independence of the Electoral Commission and things which happen in many other countries, you know. But at the end of the day, once we produce the report and make it available to the Zimbabwean authorities and eventually to the Zimbabwean people, it really remains the preserve of the Zimbabwean people to fight for the freedoms that they need themselves and to correct those issues that have been observed. The reason why we have multiple observation missions is to ensure that, you know, there is a comparison, you know, taking place between the SADC report and the European Union report, the African Union report, and then they can see that those issues that repeat themselves in all these reports, it's up to the Zimbabwean people. And this is where I appeal to all political leaders, not only in Zimbabwe, especially the elections that are coming in Mozambique, that are coming in South Africa, in DRC. We have to make up our minds that, look, at the end of the day, once the people in the country are given an opportunity to monitor the elections, because they also monitor, it starts not during the day of the elections. They must make sure that the constitutional lacunas that can affect a good election are dealt with months before the election, and they must fight to ensure that there's a level playing field. They should never wait for the time when the election is taking place. They must also insist that the electoral commissions and the governments in those countries abide by international norms in holding democratic elections. And this fight must be more vicious before the election comes.
In short, we, the people of Zimbabwe, have got an obligation to ourselves to make sure that elections are free, fair, and credible. After 44 years of rigged elections, it is shocking that we seem to be absolutely incapable of comprehending what constitutes free, fair, and credible election in this day and age. It is not rocket science. And I think we need to get out, to snap out of this mentality of being helpless, sheepishly following leaders blindly, like sheep to the slaughter. This has got to stop. If we don't stop, then we will pay dearly for it. Millions are living in abject poverty today in Zimbabwe because we have been incredibly ignorant, naive, and gullible.
In closing, I would say, I mean, this is, what Dr. Mumba said is very clear. It's precise, straight to the point. This is the same person that we loved so much when he was reading, the SADC report. And all of a sudden, he's become the worst enemy just because of saying that, it is reforms that are the foundation of us achieving democracy, not participating in elections, not getting Chamisa in, but the fact that we are doing this for the future. And he also goes to emphasize to say the fight should start now, such that when we get to 2028, the platform has already been set. We know that we are going to have a meaningful say this time around. Not to always be saying, this time we're going to do this and that and this and that, as if Zanu PF is going to be just sitting and waiting for you guys to strategize. They too will strategize how they will rig the elections, right? So like what he says, it's the time for us to fight, to call for reforms, and it must be furious now, such that, when we get to 2028, we shouldn't be, starting the whole, process to say they did this, they did that, they did this. We are tired of that. And I hope people can also learn, think for ourselves. This is what makes us humans, that ability to think for ourselves. It's our right, it's our vote. We should know what we are doing with it at the end of the day. Thank you.
I think in my closing remarks, I would like to salute our friend here for admitting that he has been conning people. And I hope that many of his followers will finally, the penny will finally drop, and they start opening their eyes and realize they have been conned. But like I said, it's not so much on the religious side that I'm concerned about. It's on the political side. People of Zimbabwe must open their eyes and accept that they have got a corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless opposition. The opposition has failed to deliver the democratic changes needed to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. And not only that, they are now Zanu PF's partners in conning people to participate in flawed elections. The challenge in 2028 is not stopping Zanu PF rigging the elections. You can't. Zanu PF has got more than 2/3 majority in parliament. They're not going to implement any reforms. Zanu PF will never reform itself out of office. The challenge is not stopping Chamisa and company participating in those flawed elections again. They have sold out in the past. They will sell out again. The challenge is stopping the 2 million who voted for him last time, and the 2 million, particularly in the diaspora, cheering and applauding the participation in flawed elections. That is our biggest challenge. We have got people who are so naive and gullible. They believe the opposition, regardless of all the evidence that they are corrupt, incompetent. They still want to treat them as if they are gods. This is the tragedy of Africa. Forget Zanu PF, forget the opposition. Focus on those 2 million gullible, naive voters and the 2 million others in the diaspora in particular, cheering them along. 2028, Zanu PF will rig those elections. But whether or not the party will get away with it would depend on whether or not we can stop some of those head participating. I'll just post this comment from somebody there. I don't know whether Ben, you would want to speak to that comment.
Oh, okay. So Pride says Zanu PF chicha yakaite kunze kokuba. Yes, I agree. I mean, we know Zanu PF is a corrupt, government. Corruption now is at its, I think, at its worst. It's so evident. They are no longer hiding it. You're hearing of so many scandals that are happening in ZEC. You have scandals, gold mafia, ZESA deals going wrong. We know that, but what we should be focusing on is not what Zanu PF is doing, but what we are doing to stop Zanu PF from continuing. That is what we are supposed to be fighting for, and this is why we are talking about the implementation of reforms, such that when 2028 comes, we cannot stop Zanu PF now. Zanu PF is already a government. Let us forget about what people are going to say. We are going to do this at SADC and all that. Our focus now should be 2028. That is the most logical, position for us to start, thinking about removing Zanu PF. But now let us work towards that, implementing reforms. SADC gave us recommendations. Let's table those recommendations. If they refuse, we refuse to go to elections because they refused to implement what SADC and all other observers suggested that we do. And we have a case from there. That should be our main focus at the moment.
Thank you very much, Ben. And to the listeners, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I hope you'll be able to join us again tomorrow, the usual time, 7 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. The remark I was just showing at the bottom there, for some people, maybe if you didn't have the chance to read it, was David Coulthard's quotation in a book where he was admitting that 2013 electoral process was so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step was to withdraw. He and his friends did not withdraw. And he explains it there because of greed. This is the truth. Why people keep on participating in these elections just to keep Zanu PF in power and the MDC-CCC guys, so that they would have the few gravy train seats, beggars belief. Like I said, the main challenge for Zimbabwe today is not so much Zanu PF. Zanu PF is in power. They are the ones who created this corrupt, tyrannical regime. They are the ones who are enjoying the carte blanche powers to rig elections and to stay in power. That realization in the late 1990s was that we should get an opposition party that will implement reforms to stop the rigging. Zanu PF has bribed our friends in MDC-CCC so that they will join them and participate in the election process to give the process legitimacy, and Zanu PF to allow Zanu PF to get away with it. And for a reward, they get the benefit of the few gravy train seats. That is the reality. That is the historic fact that we are dealing with here. This is why this clip of the prophet who is admitting himself that he has conned people is so important, because the opposition politicians have conned people in the same way, and the people have remained with the eyes wide open and their brains complete blank. This is what we are talking about here. If the people participate in 2028 elections because they've been conned to participate by the opposition, then we are going to perpetuate this case of rigged elections and bad governance. After 44 years of rigged elections, one was hoping that we'll finally open our eyes and our minds and see what is there. That is the message of today's discussion. Thank you again very much, Ben, for leading in the discussion. And for the listeners, thank you for your being able to join us. And Pride has just posted another message there. But I hope you'll be able to join us again tomorrow, 7 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwe time. Thanks, Ben.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.